On this podcast, you'll find interviews with high-performing, successful individuals in life sciences. On a weekly basis, we cover their proven methods, principles, strategies, and mindsets to implement new technologies that scale to meet the needs of people in our world.
Welcome to Life Science Success. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Don, and I am a digital marketer. And today joining us is Katrina Rogers. But before we get into the interview with Katrina, I just wanted to play a quick message from our sponsor.
Are you a life science investor or executive looking to make meaningful connections? Introducing Bullpen, an exclusive club where industry leaders gather to help others succeed. Our mantra is simple: find someone to help. Repeat. Join us for virtual panels, networking events, and unparalleled opportunities to collaborate with top-tier professionals. Bullpen, where deal makers meet and innovation thrives. Apply now at bullpen.ventures.
So in this episode of Life Science Success, my guest is Katrina Rogers. She's a seasoned expert with over 25 years of life sciences, specializing in transforming laboratory and technical operations. So with that, welcome, Katrina.
Thanks, Don, and thanks for inviting me to join you.
Yeah, it's great to have you. And so you're a Bullpen member. Since we just the first time that I played that was just now for everybody, and it's an exciting organization from my perspective. When did you join the Bullpen?
Interestingly enough, I joined in November of last year, so this is my 1-year anniversary this month.
Oh, that's very good. And why did you join as a consultant?
So when I got introduced to the Bullpen through a colleague of mine in Colorado, and she introduced me to Christian, and I ended up getting inadvertently invited to an inning, one of the panels, and I knew right away that this was for me. I had been looking for a way to connect to my people, and I could recognize them all on the both in the panel as well as in the chat for the meeting. And I could also see the benefits of thinking about, using the platform as a framework to help me strategize and plan for some of the significant meetings that I was planning to attend. A JP Morgan week, as well as bio, but then some of the smaller events as well throughout the year. So it was a very easy decision for me to jump on board as a founding club member, and I've been very happy with the experience ever since.
Very good. Well, let's talk a little bit about you. And, I want to spend the majority of our time together talking about you. So tell me a little bit about yourself and your background and what led you to life sciences. What led you to where you are today?
Well, you mentioned that I have over 25 years of experience. That experience is in pharmaceutical and medical device discovery, development, and manufacturing. I've worked in corporate America at Pfizer. I worked at a contract research organization, MDS Pharma Services, and I've also worked in sterile fill finish at Jubilant Hollister Steer, and did that before launching my professional services firm. I would say that I became interested in the field of life sciences very early on. My parents had us pointed towards college, and we received a lot of science kits and tools, and one of the things I received early on was a chemistry kit. So I've been a chemist by inclination and training for many, many years. And it was in at the University of Washington that I took my analytical chemistry degree. And after I came out, it was in a recession. And so I was casting about for opportunities. There weren't any in Seattle at the time. But I was very fortunate to receive a call back from Pfizer Central Research, the drug metabolism group, and that's where I went for the first part of my career.
And so did you spend all of that time at that point in time, were you at a bench?
While I was at Pfizer, I was at the bench primarily. That was 100% of my activities. And I did everything soup to nuts to enable, to discover and develop compounds all the way up to the IND stage. So whether that was early discovery project teamwork, working on target research, focused on, how do we screen and scan for candidates, as well as thinking about what are IND enabling studies, everything from the lens of drug metabolism. So that's really the start is about that drug metabolism focus.
Very good. And so what are some of the pivotal moments that you had in your career that you would say led you to the point where you're at today?
I certainly think that my move to Pfizer in my early career was one of the pivotal moments. The second one would be when I left Pfizer to come to a contract research organization. It's a very different milieu. And the focus there at MDS Pharma Services was primarily their safety pharmacology screens. They were well known for that work. And they wanted to add metabolism screening along with it. And that was my job, was to implement that at the bench as well as support it from a sales and executive perspective. And I ended up as a technical director for pharmacology and metabolism at that unit after growing through laboratory operations and management in that space.
And so were you ASQ certified there, or did you do that later?
I did that later. So my exposure to, I think, the quality realm really came with my work in the quality unit at sterile fill finish manufacturer Jubilant Hollister Steer in Spokane, Washington. And I think there's a context there for having worked in the sort of pre-space, the pre-IND space, and maybe the early clinical space for many years, getting an opportunity to work in the commercial production, commercial manufacturing of drug product space, and then connect to commercial manufacturing of drug substance as well. It really gave me a different perspective. So the only thing that I haven't actively worked hands-on in would be supporting clinical trials. But I have a lot of colleagues who have given me great information about that.
Yeah, there's parts of me that is very thankful I haven't spent a lot of time in clinical trials for a lot of different reasons. And a big part of it, chasing patients and chasing data and keeping binders filled with lots of different information. So I don't envy that position. I definitely respect it for sure.
It is its own area of expertise.
Absolutely. And so if I kind of think back through some of the things that I know about you, because I think that in a way this interview is a little unfair because I do know a little bit about you versus some of the other individuals that I interview. Oftentimes I just have to do research with assets that are available online. But I seem to recall as well, weren't you in charge of an incubator or leading an incubator, something to that effect?
Yes, sir. So I am the founding CEO of Evergreen Bioscience Innovation. That is the modern innovation cluster aiming to build the bioscience ecosystem of the future in the greater Northwest. And so the area that we cover is Washington, Idaho, Oregon, Montana, and Utah, certainly aiming to make that geographic region larger. But
Colorado?
Nevertheless,
Sorry.
We do have a couple of members in Colorado. So I think it would be fair to claim Colorado as well. And we're excited. I think we're excited always to engage with folks who are interested in what we're trying to do. So what we know about the work that we do is that it is complex. It is multi-stage. There are a lot of milestones you have to get through, lots of steps. Companies rarely have all the expertise in-house, and they often go out for contract service providers. We also know in our region that there are a lot of existing and growing contract service providers. So we wanted to be able to make sure that not only do our innovators in our region know about the local resources, so in other words, they can call people who are in their own or adjacent time zone to get support, but also expand the range of those contract service providers both across the United States as well as the world. And a modern innovation cluster is very much focused on doing that. I stepped down from the CEO role earlier this year and handed it over to Michelle Armstrong, who is our executive director. And I occupy a board position now and focus on talent development, but always very excited to share the innovation cluster with people who are interested and who want to know more.
I think it's so important to have that as well, because I sort of see that there are needs for understanding of where resources are, especially whenever you need them. I mean, obviously there are plenty of times whenever the primary researcher or the individual who started the company or what have you, they know what to do and they know how to sort of proceed. But then all of us get to that point where we just need more help and need resources to be able to reach out to and make sure that we, are leveraging people that can actually help us and have an impact.
Very true. It's like that Beatles song, we get by with a little help from our friends.
Absolutely. So can you tell us more about your current role and your current responsibilities leading your own consulting company?
Sure. So it's an eponymous consulting firm. I am a solopreneur. I do most of the work and most of the consulting, though I am in the process of looking at how I expand that appropriately for people. My current role is to provide the engine behind what we're doing, to provide the advice and consulting that my companies need. I'm really a problem solver. So a CEO or an investor will bring me in when a company is facing challenges that they're unable to overcome with their own initiative. And we see this a lot. Companies don't always know what they don't know, and they also tend to struggle and sometimes can't see their way out of what they've achieved. So I work in strategy, I work in operations, and I can work in leadership. And what we find is that a problem often has one or more of those facets. So as an objective third party, I can come in, sit down and have a calm discussion. Sometimes we have to calm down a little bit, but can have a calm discussion with folks about what is happening, what do they see, what really is, maybe reorient people on what those original goals were, because people tend to drift as well from the vision, that original vision. And then help people start to sort through what the options are, and also bring in the expertise of my network where I don't have any direct ability to assist, or where somebody needs a little bit more specific assistance.
Very good. And so would you say that primarily when somebody brings you in to help overcome challenges, are they mostly sort of focused on like the drug development side or the process side, or kind of a mix of both? I mean, just curious, just so that people know, hey, look, keep you in mind for these specific things for sure.
Okay. Well, one of the things that makes me unusual is that I can work in drugs, devices, diagnostics, and digital health. And from a digital health perspective, it's primarily software as a medical device, but I'm getting a lot of calls these days to help people with AI tools and other kinds of things that are creeping out. The boundaries are really kind of very fuzzy there right now. The stage of the problem or the scope of the problem tends to be very particular to the stage of the company. But we know some really obvious problems are cases where people are struggling to do enough customer discovery to understand what the market potential looks like, what the go-to-market and looks like, how to articulate that effectively. There are cyclical changes to the market and to the funding, and people are expecting things to stay the same and they don't. And so then how do you shift people's perspective on, let's pivot and move towards what the most likely source of revenue is, or what is the most productive discussion around how to move your product forward. And sometimes it can be a really difficult conversation. Do you have too many people? Or is there a case here where we have to make changes to the business that are going to mean some very uncomfortable conversations with folks?
Yeah. It's so important to be right sized, especially as you're going through these sort of growth stages that every company sort of faces as it gets a little bigger, and you start to add more and more people and complexity and things like that. So as you take a look at the work that you do, how do you contribute in terms of reducing the cost and the time associated with bringing new therapies to market?
Well, a typical timeline for a medical device is 6 to 7 years. A typical timeline for a new therapeutic is about 13 years, and that's a timeline from issuance of IP. So it kind of doesn't count for that early development work. We work hard to help people break through the barriers. So one of the things that creates a big time lag is when you cannot make a decision. And the truth of the matter is you will never have all the data that you need to make the best decision. You have to work, you're best off working with the data that you have and making a decision to move forward, because not making a decision is also a decision, and it's usually not the best decision.
Yeah, it's I think really good advice, especially whenever if somebody came out of an academic environment, right? I mean, you're used to sort of being in this cyclical research mode and not finishing a project, but at the same time, the projects that, most medical device or drug companies are working on are very dependent on timelines and trying to get through not just funding, but also making sure that they hit key milestones as well.
Mm-hmm. Oh, we have the opposite problem, I think, when people come from a larger organization and move into a startup organization without really understanding what they're getting into. So they have an expectation that there may be more supports and more organization and more systems in place. And that often leads to a real disconnect when you realize that, oh, wait a minute, you were actually brought in to build that. So you're going to need to roll your sleeves up and jump in here with us. And that can be a bit of a sticker shock for many folks.
Absolutely. So could you share with us some of the key projects or initiatives that you've worked on or are currently focusing on?
Well, I can't share any of the active projects that I have now. Of course, I have existing CDAs or NDAs to manage that. But I have worked in the past on talent development. I have also worked to elevate and raise the profile of the startup companies in our region, and raising the profile of Spokane as a potential home for new companies that are interested in developing a home base here in Washington State and in the United States. So we're currently engaged with Queensland and the Brisbane community through the Brisbane EDA, as well as the Queensland Trade Association, thinking about what do those network connections look like between Spokane and Queensland, and then how do we elevate the opportunities that exist to do clinical trials at a lower cost, to maybe think about your IP strategy. If you're going for a global exposure, what does that look like? Those sorts of things.
Really good. And what are some of the advancements or innovations that you're particularly excited about in the area of, pharmaceutical GMP and or quality management?
One of the things that I think people don't recognize is how much organizations that have quality management systems are allied. So here in our greater Northwest region, we have a lot of aerospace parts manufacturers, and they're quite used to supplying Boeing and other aerospace manufacturers with these different sorts of parts. They have quality management systems that are ISO certified to AS 9100 standards. But it turns out that those certifications and the systems that support them are just steps away, if not just a little bit of documentation away, from 13485 certification, which means that they could easily turn and manufacture medical devices. And this is a big surprise to many companies. But when they realize that, they recognize that there's an opportunity to pivot and to have an opportunity to have a different business that maybe is subject to a different business cycle. And we're getting a lot more attention on that in the last few months with Boeing's troubles. So I think we'll be able to advance that conversation a bit. I try to get people to think about what material are you expert in, and can that material be used effectively for some sort of medical product? And if the answer is yes, then you've got a business opportunity you ought to think about.
Yeah, I also think about so having digital systems that are connected in some way, also has to enable quite a few things. And you mentioned AI earlier. I also just think about the overall ability for, let's just say during an audit, finding all of the assets inside of a company tied to a particular question that you're getting, from an auditor, whether it be the FDA or some external organization, even you're just looking at things. I just feel like, those sorts of tools would better enable quality audits, especially if you're sitting in the back room or having to face an auditor in the front room of an intense audit.
I agree 100%. And the way I like to think about it is as intelligent agents. And I don't think that we are focused on developing them as much. And I think they could be very powerful tools. One of the things I'd like to see is intelligent agents that work to pull together the available data that we're already tracking and create digital twins of validated processes so that you could do better predictions about what the manufacturing space is and what the quality space is for those products, so that when you have a deviation, it's not up to the people to spend hours and hours and hours filtering through data. They can go and model the deviation in the digital twin and say, what are the outcomes when we model this using the digital twin?
Wouldn't that be nice?
Oh, yes. Having done many, many deviation investigations, I would be the first person right at the door, knocking on the door saying, oh, I want this.
Absolutely. All right. So to think a little bit about your career and your history, what's the best leadership advice that you've ever received?
I would say that I've really had the benefit of a number of excellent mentors in my career. I think the best piece of leadership advice I got a few years ago, I was reading a book called Essentialism by Greg McKeown. And one of his principles in that book is protecting the asset, which means, pace yourself and recognize that, especially if you're a solopreneur, but if you're in a leadership role, if you aren't operating at 100%, then everything is falling down around you. So what is the first mandate is to make sure that you can operate at 100%. And if that means that obviously means pacing yourself, it means taking care of your health, it means taking the time to recharge, it means that you cannot run constantly and still do the job that you're really capable of.
Very good. Thank you for sharing that. What inspires you?
What inspires me? I'm inspired by the founders that I meet, and especially the founders from underrepresented communities and women founders. I am inspired by their mission. I'm inspired by their vision for what they're trying to achieve. And I'm also quite frankly inspired by their ability to do amazing things with very few resources. I do find a lot of these founders out away from the main hubs, right? You don't find them near Boston. You'd find some near Boston and some near San Francisco, but we find them sprinkled all over the country. And some of them are just doing very incredible things all by themselves, maybe with a little bit of grant funding, mostly out of their pockets, and making some incredible progress. Perfect. And what concerns you? I am a little concerned about what we can look forward to here. It's nice to have the election over with. That provides us with some certainty, but I think it also opens a lot of questions. Some of the things that have been proposed could create a lot of turmoil in our industry and create a lot of turmoil for our startup founders as well as for the investors who are trying to figure out, how to support these things, what are the right regulatory paths for the products. So that definitely, I have some serious concerns about that. Well, thank you for sharing your concerns. And last question, what excites you? I am excited to be in the bullpen. Every time I'm in here, I meet great people. We have great conversations. We exchange great ideas. People ask questions and get answers that I think you can't get anyplace else. And the whole point of the organization, from my perspective, is to create a safe space where we can develop the trust so that if there is a problem, you can find a few people to just say, hey, I'm having this problem. Have you had this problem before, and how did you solve it? Or do you know somebody who could help me? And just recognize that nobody knows what they're doing. We're all making it up. And so if we can create that safe space for us to all be in that space, then that will be a benefit for everyone.
Yeah, I think, some of the greatest connections that I've made throughout my history in this field in general, just have a lot of history in a big network. And I'm not talking about like a LinkedIn network. I'm talking about like just their ability to think through, hey, if you have this problem, you should call Bob or Sally or whoever, and having that ability to have you're just a great network to kind of leverage and have conversations with is powerful. Mm-hmm. And that's where I think, the mantra, of find someone, help and repeat, inside of the bullpen is so, overall helpful to the people in the community as well. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I would like to think that other club members have found it as transformative as I have.
Yeah, absolutely. And so anybody that hasn't checked out the Bullpen should go to bullpen.ventures. First of all, since I'm playing their sponsorship at the beginning of this episode in particular, but also, take the time to schedule coming to virtual innings, and then certainly look us up because both you and I are in there as well, and people can certainly connect with us there. The other thing I want to tell people about is that if you're not connected with Katrina on LinkedIn, you for sure should connect with her and make sure that you check out her frequent Where is Katrina posts, because they oftentimes signal not only where she at in the country, but also, some of the things that she might be working on as well. And I really appreciate, your work, Katrina, and all the great things that you're doing in your consulting agency. And thank you for, being such a great connection for me. I appreciate it.
Well, you're welcome, Don. It's my pleasure. And I have to say that Life Science Success Podcast has helped me reconnect with some people from my previous work as well. So that is very exciting.
Absolutely. Well, thanks so much. And, thanks for being on. I appreciate it. Take care. Thank you for listening to Life Science Success. For complete details about this podcast, including show notes, how to get in touch with guests, and more episodes, please visit www.lifesciencesuccess.com. If there's someone you'd like for us to invite to the show as a guest, please let me know by sending me a message at the podcast website. Please click subscribe on your favorite podcast app, share the podcast, or tell a friend about it, and last but not least, rate the podcast. Thank you again.